Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode in this series, Conversations with Shelly. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I'm Shelly. And for those of you who are familiar, always thank you. Welcome back. Nice to have you always sticking and staying. So, as you know, there are times when I have serious conversations, as the one I'm about to have, and there are times when I joke or add humor to a lot of serious discussion and offer some amount of social commentary, but the intention is to not to dive into it as serious as the topic is expected or intended to be. And today is a little bit different because today I intend to give you one of my much um, thought about topics. And I do believe this one is very important and very critical because I have been a victim in the past um, as to exactly what I am about to discuss. And a victim may be a strong word to use, but at this point in time, I think I will use the word that emotes the feeling that I felt at the time. So, what am I talking about? What I'm talking about is the age old question that I've often asked myself: why are women still measured by marriage or children? No, I have thought gone are the days when the worth of a woman is measured by who she's affiliated to in terms of marriage or whose name she now takes on, and in so doing, subsequently, how many children she has been able to have, right? So you can just imagine for a lot of independent women, in quotes, and I want to do that because there are lots of things in my view that define independence. But for the standard definition of what independent women should be seen as, for quite a lot of us, um, we have been able to achieve so much more in life, um, and yet still, this particular question still comes up in a lot of our scenarios, in a lot of our um, community, a lot of our spaces, a lot of our circles that we're a part of. No matter how much you have achieved, you almost seem to carry no value or no weight because you're not married or you're not with child or having children. So why it is that when someone asks you about your life, you almost seem to want to pause because you're tempted to be excited about the other achievements that you've accomplished, but because you know that this is the type of stigma that is attached to the question, you tend to want to pause and sort of, shrink yourself in order to avoid the question, as the case may be. Then there are those who will encourage you, for want of a better word, because for many of us it doesn't seem like an encouragement, but of course, that is how they bring it out. Yeah. For those of us, the typical scenario is that a lot of persons will say, you should think about having children. You should think about marrying. And in their subtle way, they encourage you into the seeming wanting to add that value to you because somehow they don't see you as having worth. Now, one of the things that is very important for us to understand when we try to dive into this very murky water is to understand the historical and context within which a lot of these questions have been based. So for a lot of us who have not been married or, may not have had children, historically, marriage and motherhood weren't just milestones that you achieved as part of your list, right? They were for many women historically and culturally and contextually means of surviving. that was how they could survive. You either had to be married and had to have children. And what this created in many of these historical and cultural contexts is the fact that marriage offered security and children offered or meant legacy, right? And this is usually the historical and cultural context when a lot of societies, um, women were seen as property and they could not have been seen as independent minded or having their own independent thoughts or visions for themselves. And naturally they had to be um, submerged into this frame of feeling secure or feeling that they had to benefit by way of legacy. So even though society has changed, moved far beyond that cultural and historical context, many years have gone since we've been submerged into those scenarios. The mindset for me has sadly not shifted, and the mindset has not caught up with what truly happens in many of our realities as independent minded women. Because for many of us, we're still running on that old script that has shaped expectations today from as far back as our childhood. Girls have been conditioned into understanding that there's this idea of a fairy tale wedding, a prince charming to come and rescue us. And as the fairy tales evolved, then you were told that your next biggest achievement was to have children, to carry on the legacy, right? And again, while those things may work for some people, there are clearly going to be others that it doesn't fit within their square. Yeah? So fairy tales often end in weddings, marriages often end with children. Um, and for quite some time, the focus has always been to understand and to interpret people and to put a value on women for making them into this idea and ideology of being wife material and to be a mother. Now, for many of us, including myself, those labels have meant something different because even without taking on those labels in their direct and denotative meaning, I can imagine that there are so many of us that have mother like qualities or wife like qualities, as the case may be. So we may not fall squarely within the motherhood because we may not have children or we may not have a husband, but we do display the qualities that have been affixed to these titles and these labels. And while girls have been conditioned along this path, boys have been encouraged to achieve, to build, to become, and girls have been encouraged and conditioned to belong. And that programming that takes place apparently has never fully disappeared. And what has happened over the years, it has just gotten quieter and more socially accepted. So the social proof and double standard that happens when we look at how boys are conditioned versus how girls are conditioned allow you to want to put yourself into the frame of mind to say marriage and children have been a social proof. You're proving something to society. Either that you're proving that you can be lovable, either that you're proving that you can be stable, either that you're proving that you're doing a great job or you're doing things right. But at the end of the day, yeah, when a woman doesn't meet these expectations or these criteria or these requirements, people often see them as failures. And then it makes a lot of us question the reality and the cogency of the double standard that exists in real life. Because if you look at this double standard, A man without children is deemed to be focused and driven, while a woman without children is often seen as running out of time. Your clock is ticking. You need to get on top of it. You need to stop what you're doing and get on board with this thing. And a woman without marriage is considered to be unsettled, while a man is considered without marriage to be stable. And again, it feeds into this double standard that we have found ourselves to be in society wise. And the same life events happen over decades, and we have not really seen a different interpretation. Yes, as I said, the noise of it has quieted down, but it has not been turned off. So much of the pressure that comes from the past is in our reality in today's 21st century still something to reckon with, right? But what do we now say about this? Is it a problem? Is it an issue to be resolved? Or can we now change and pivot our mindset and stop computing the value of a woman insofar as she's either married or she's a mother? Is it that marriage and motherhood aren't really the problem? So let's be clear. Marriage and motherhood aren't the problems. The problem is treating them as requirements. A woman shouldn't need a ring or a child to justify her being an adult or her worth or her happiness, because real progress is allowing choices to take place without judgment and scrutiny. And that is where I want the mindset to know happen. Married women deserve respect. Single women deserve respect. Mothers deserve respect. And women who choose not to have children equally deserve respect. There's no hierarchy. There shouldn't be any timeline. There shouldn't be any need to explain something. So, the bigger question that we should ask ourselves, the real question that we should ask ourselves, isn't why aren't you married? Or why don't you have children? Maybe the real question should be, why are you still uncomfortable with women defining their own lives? A woman's life is not a checklist. Her worth is not measured by marriage or motherhood. And fulfillment doesn't come in a single path. It never did. Certainly not for me. And if it did, no one would feel the pressure in the first place because we know exactly what to do. So here is a takeaway from my session, my little episode, and something that I want a lot of persons who come even across my space value my choices, respect my decisions. Let women in general define who they are and their own story. Yeah? Don't you ever feel judged or pressured into any of these things, because sometimes it is about other persons determining your life. And when they do that, you don't have a say in how it plays out in the end. So, for those individuals that have asked me, when are you going to get married? When are you going to do the family thing? Or they may ask you, remind them to allow you to write your own story and not to judge you or pressure you into making their own insecurities and their old value system become something that they place upon you as a burden. So if you found this little 15 minutes catching touch point to be helpful, Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Yeah? And hit that notification bell to share with all the women, the wonderful women in your lives that have made a decision by their own volition to remain unmarried and without children and have no issues with it. And for those women who have taken the path of motherhood and marriage equally to be respected, let us enjoy each other's freedom of choice and freedom in how we want to navigate our own lives and respect each other for those choices. And until I see you next, do take care.